I hung back as we got to the room, still a little hesitant about going in. I knew things about this place, a room that looked like any other, but seemed to have teeth, and I wasn't in a big hurry to go find out if the rumors were true. What if this was some kind of trick to get me in there, right where it wanted me? Did it want me? Maybe that was kind of presumptuous for me to assume, but really seemed like it. "Hey, you okay?" Marcus asked, looking back at me from the doorway. I was about to give him some lame answer when I heard a voice from inside that I'll never forget. It reminded me of my own grandpa. It reminded me of other people's grandpa. And I suppose that was to be expected. Given what I would come to learn about him, it all made a lot of sense.
"Who is it, son? Did you bring someone to see me? Did they bring me anything to eat besides this stuff?"
All my apprehension seemed to run out of me as I heard his voice, and when I walked across the threshold, it was like walking between the rubber buffers on a cooler. It parted, but it did so begrudgingly, and I shivered as I went through it. Marcus nodded as I turned back to look at it, and it was clear that I wasn't the only one who had felt it. "It takes some getting used to," he said, though I doubted it was old hat for him either. The man in the bed wasn't what I had expected, but I suppose I might have inflated him in my mind some. It was, after all, hard to be truly spectacular in a hospital gown. I'd expected a wizened old man with a long white beard and piercing blue eyes, the eyes of a man who had seen great and terrible things. What I got was a shrunken old fella, clean-shaven, with a fluff of downy white hair on his liver-spotted head. His eyes were green and free of the cataracts that so many of the other oldsters in the hospital seemed to have. His waist was covered in plaster, the cast thick as it stopped him from doing further harm to himself, and it looked like it would make sleeping pretty uncomfortable. He was old and frail, but there was definitely something about him that made me feel like Marcus's claims weren't so far-fetched. It was like the sound in the walls, a quiet thrumming that seemed to come from him. He reminded me of Yoda, a small man who practically vibrated with energy that I didn't understand.
"Well, hello, young man. You don't look like a housekeeper, and you're not wearing the scrubs that the cafeteria people usually wear, so what brings you here?"
The remains of his breakfast were sitting on the little tray across his lap, and he slid it away from him with no real regret. Just because they were eating omelets in the cafeteria didn't mean that they were eating them up here on the third floor. The old-timer had a plastic tray with watery eggs, some very questionable-looking sausage, some mixed fruit, and a little oatmeal. I had to agree with the fella. It was a poor breakfast indeed. "I'm John," I told him. "I work downstairs at reception. Your grandson and I have been talking lately, and he's been regaling me with some pretty weird stories. He talks a lot about creatures in the woods and the strange things that his grandpa has seen in his travels." The old man smiled wetly, his teeth going, but mostly still there.
"Oh, you can't believe a word of it. He lies like a rug," he said, grinning at Marcus as he came to stand beside him.
"Me?" Marcus said. "So you admit that none of this is real, and I'm not just going crazy?"
"Oh, we're all going crazy, kiddo. That's how you know you're going about it in the right way."
"John," Marcus said, "this is my grandpa. May I introduce you to—" "Gramps, I just realized I don't really know how to introduce you. I've always just called you Grandpa, and people knew who I was talking about."
"I suppose he can call me Grandpa if he wants to. Everyone else does, after all. Or Jack, if he doesn't.
He extended a hand and I shook it. Fair enough, Gramps. I was telling your grandson about some of the oddities inside the hospital. Grandpa snorted.
That's one way to put it. I tell you, I was madder than a wet hen when I woke up to discover that he had let that ambulance take me here. I wanted to go to a hospital in Gainesville, or hell, even Atlanta General would have been a better place than this spook house.
So you know about the ghosts here? I asked, taking a seat by his bed. Grandpa gave me a look.
Kid, everybody knows about the ghosts here, even if they won't admit it. The ghosts and the spirits of Cashmere Hospital are the worst kept secret in town. The only reason this place isn't some kind of a ghost tour property is because the higher-ups work extra hard to keep it off the radar.
What do you mean? I asked, gritting my teeth as Marcus pulled out another chair.
Hospitals are places of healing, places where people get better. No one wants to imagine going into a hospital for treatment and being stuck there forever as a shambling whore. It's repugnant, and it would stop people from coming to the hospital at all. The management here probably works full-time to keep the ghoulies here a secret. I imagine they have been quite a few staff that have gone missing too, or worse, over the years.
I thought about Francis Garland and David and the doctor who had come running out of the car park and nodded. The problem isn't that it takes them and kills them, I said, feeling silly even as I said it. The problem is that sometimes it returns them. It returns them changed or not quite whole. Grandpa looked at Marcus and they shared something for a moment before he turned back.
Sounds like we may have found the right person to talk to. Have you had a lot of trouble with the entities in the hospital?
You could say that. I'm writing a book about all these things and the stories of all those who have experienced them.
Grandpa snorted. Well, this would be the place to do it. Do you happen to know anything about what comes after death, kid?
I thought about the red-clad orderly and nodded. Yeah, I might know someone with some insight on that. We've been talking a lot lately, and he's been helping me to understand a little more about the spirit world. Sounds like you and me, Gramps, Marcus said. It's not exactly like that. Well, I tried to find a way to say it, but Grandpa hit the nail on the head.
You've got a friend on the other side, don't you?
I nodded. Yeah, he's a guide. He helps spirits pass over. He's teaching me how to do it too. Grandpa's eyes got wide.
A human who guides spirits to the other side. Now that would be a first. I wonder, would you mind if I took a look at the book you're writing?
I think I'd like that, I said. Might be nice to have a second opinion on what I'm writing. I'd also like to get your opinion on one story in particular, the one about the room you're currently lying in. Grandpa nodded, laughing again as he poured some water from a pitcher and tried to get comfortable in his cast.
Yeah, I thought it felt a little strange in here. Maybe a spirit that was trying to make contact or something. I don't know. Whatever it is, this room hums with latent energy. Maybe you know why.
I don't know the whole story myself, but what I do know is that people keep checking in here, and then they don't always check out. Some of it can be chalked up to people slipping out in the middle of the night, but not all of it. People are disappearing from this room, and some of them are being heard afterward in phone calls. It happens to maybe every 1 in 40, but it's starting to get worse. It may be 1 in 38 now. I don't know. But it's going to get even worse before it gets better. The disappearances are appearing a little targeted, too. Such as, Marcus said, women in their 30s or 40s, young men, older people. All of it started after a little girl died in that room, too. At least that's what my contacts say. She's the key, and she's the one that's taking them, we believe. Another look passed between the two of them. I was starting to feel kind of left out.
I think we need to meet this mysterious friend of yours. Maybe share some information. If he can help us, maybe we can help him too. I'm not exactly mobile these days, so I guess you'll have to go in my place, boy, he said, patting Marcus on the arm.
Goody goody, Marcus said, almost like being a grown-up and getting to go off by myself and stuff. He took his phone out, though, and started texting someone, making me wonder if we would be as alone as I thought.
Do you have any way to get in touch with him? Grandpa asked.
Not really, but he's in and out, so he shouldn't be that hard to find. It's really just a matter of time.
Well, Grandpa said, let's hope we have some of that.
We did a little more small talk, and when they started calling out for lunch orders, I realized it might be time for me to get a little sleep, but not before I made a call of my own. Carl picked up on the third ring, and his yawn was huge.
Jesus, man. You ever heard of business hours?
I might have someone who can help me with your missing person reports for room 301, but I need a favor.
Yeah?
He asked, and I heard his mattress groan as he sat up.
Name it.
Have you got someone on right now who knows anything about the weirdness in the hospital?
Hamlin does. He's seen some weird stuff too, and we've talked about it more than once. He's become my right-hand man on days, which means he'll probably go looking for real security work any day now.
Can you tell him to keep an eye peeled for our red-scrubbed friend?
Sure, but aren't you guys like best friends? Can't you just set up an orderly signal or something?
I laughed. Honestly, I just sort of bump into him most of the time. But I need to talk with him. If you or your man Hamlin see him, just let me know, okay? Carl said he would, and we said goodbye as I turned back to Marcus, who followed me to the elevator. I've got someone looking out for him. They'll let me know if he shows up. I assume you're staying here. Yeah, I want to be here when Grandpa's doctor comes in. He's healing well, but he's old, so it's always dicey. He could get MRSA or some kind of respiratory infection like he had last year. I'll probably catch a nap sometime in between, but if your friend shows up, give me a call, okay? We swapped phone numbers as I told him I would text him straight away. See if you can request a new room, I said on a whim. If they move him, then this might all be for nothing. I'll try, Marcus said. If it's later on, then I might have someone else who could help us. A friend. Well, more than a friend. It appears you'll get to meet my fiancée, I suppose. Just try not to stare. She's quite a looker. You've been hanging with old men too much, bud. You're starting to pick up their slang, I told him with a laugh. I left then, heading home to get some rest, and when my phone chirped a little later, I saw that I had slept till almost 6 p.m. It was Carl, and when I picked up, I heard his end of a conversation with someone else.
Hey, we found him. He's on the 4th floor, and he seems to be, waiting for something, so you might have a small window of time.
I thanked him and sent a text to Marcus, who told me to meet him at the lobby in 10. The room move is a no-go. Apparently, they're full up on that floor, but I suspect his doctor simply wants him to move as little as possible. See you in 10. I'll get you something from the cafeteria. Glimmer and I are just finishing up dinner. I didn't know who Glimmer was, but I told him to get me whatever. and I headed out. They were waiting for me when I got there, Marcus and a tall woman in a long coat. The hood was up, but when she pushed it back, I was enchanted. She was like some D&D elf from the source book. Her skin was smooth and translucent, like it had been spun from glass, and her hair was long and pale, wound into a tight braid. She smiled at me as she stuck a hand out, Marcus offering me a box of food as I shook the offered hand.
It's wonderful to meet you. My love has spoken very highly of you. I understand you may have need of a hunter.
You're still here. Thanks for stopping by. Dr. Plague here. Always a pleasure to see all my new and old viewers coming by for another one of my spooky tales. If you'd like to support the show, you can always take part in one of our channel offers through Fume or Aura, or you can just click on another video when they come up. I'd really appreciate it. For our newer viewers, we also have lots of playlists and other things if you'd like to get caught up. I know some of my series have been going on for quite a while. If you'd like to get my latest book, there's a link down below that'll take you to my Amazon page. Towesey Homestead just came out, so if that's something you'd like to get your hands on, go ahead and have a look down there. If you'd like a signed copy, you can go ahead and email me from my email address on the site, and I'll get with you about shipping information and ship you a signed copy. If you'd like to support the channel in a more monetary fashion, we also have membership through YouTube, and we've got a Patreon that you can get the information for in the description. We have lots of tiers and everything to suit your needs. Patrons that support on the $10 tier, that's our Ghostly Reader tier, get a book anytime I write one, signed and on their doorstep. As you may have noticed, there's a list of patrons and members on the screen, and I'd like to personally thank every one of them for taking a hand in the future of this channel. Well, that's enough for tonight. Dr. Plague, signing off. Have a wonderful evening.